Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 12 Talk podcast. My name's Josh, and this, ready, boom, the right way is Mitch. We are going through it's episode 2 of our Draft Crushes series. Last week we had Dan Viennes on, and this week we've got another fantastic guest, Mr. Bryce Coutts of the HawksZone Rundown. He is the head coach of the Pinnacle QB Academy. And that's going to lend really, really well to the fact that he's going to be discussing QBs with us and his draft crushes there. So you guys need to stay with us. If you've got any comments or any questions to ask any of us, by all means, please do pop them in the comments. We will be answering them as we go through. But we'll see you on the other side of this. Boom, back in the room, back for another fantastic Draft Crushes episode. And everyone, please welcome our special guest for this pod, Mr. Bryce Coutts of the HawksZone Rundown. Bryce, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure. We were just having a quick chat offline just to sort of catch up. It's always nice when we get together. We get to have a nice little chat as friends, just catching up on how everyone's been. Obviously, you've been busy with everything going on at the HawksZone Rundown. Do you want to tell everyone who might not be following you guys what's happened recently for you?
Yeah, so the HawksZone Rundown is now affiliated with Field Gulls. So the Seahawks website that's been around for years. Mookie Alexander kind of approached me and Ryan about bringing our podcast over there since they had lost their podcast and to be affiliated with them. So we said, sure. So that's kind of now one of our big things is all of our podcasts are getting posted up there with articles and stuff. We've become part of that community. So it's really helped the show and the channel grow. So it's also gotten us new guests and stuff that have come onto the show. We just had a show with Corbin Smith the other day, which was great, and really appreciate Corbin coming on. So yeah, it's kind of changed the landscape a little bit for us over there. A lot more podcasts coming out, but it's been a lot of fun.
Good. But it's been awesome to see it all. Sort of me and Mitch, obviously, as friends of you guys, have been watching and sort of seeing it grow, and it's been absolutely amazing. And you guys with Field Gulls as well, just so cool. You've got Pulse of the Draft as well with Dan, haven't you? And that's something else that Mitch and I have been watching with great interest, because as we're doing our Draft Crushes episodes, it just fits
together.
I've actually been dodging the last few of those shows because it's not great content, Bryce. Don't get me wrong. It just because I really want to just watch them as we get closer to the draft back to back. So it's great content. I know what you're doing is brilliant, and smashing it. But as we get close to the draft, I need content to get me to draft night.
So I'll tell you that's probably a really good thing to do right now, Mitch, if that's what your plan is, because we've just started our divisional draft breakdown. So we started with the AFC West. Me and Dan will be recording one tomorrow, which will be the AFC East. So we each pick 2 teams out of it. We study each team, and then we do a draft on their needs and stuff and do a 7-round mock draft that way. So it will fill time for you as you get closer to the draft there.
Yeah, good.
I can't wait.
So, Mitch, how's your week been anyway, mate? We didn't even do this before Bryce came on, so let's just have a quick catch up as friends and for everyone else.
It's quite lucky that you didn't, because as the podcast started, I had the YouTube link ready and queued up by accident. So I was hearing you double, and I started panicking because I couldn't find which window I had it open in. So it must have looked like I just wasn't interested at all in what you were saying.
Standard practice, really, isn't it?
We've been doing this a long time, and I've never cared, honestly.
Oh, good. Well,
yeah, but otherwise I'm good. Thanks.
You're in. and Mike, I'm going to scream this from the rooftops. I got a new dog today, and he's amazing. His name's Yeti. I'll be putting him on my social medias because we bought one that we thought was going to be medium size, and based on the size of his paws, he's going to be a giant. And I am so happy about that because I hate handbag dogs. I like a nice big dog that when you're walking him, you actually go, yeah, this is a real dog. I could ride this one into battle. So yeah. So as soon as this podcast finishes, I'll be going downstairs.
So it's funny,
right.
Josh. Your dog's name is the name of my flag team. We're the Yetis.
There we go.
And neon green is our color of jersey with black.
Oh, it's all coming together. That's it. It's all coming up roses. It's destiny.
It is.
But less about our personal lives and how everyone's doing. Let's talk about Seahawks stuff. Because in the last couple of weeks, a few things have gone on. Just a little bit of news. Not a lot.
Yeah.
Nothing really. No.
I mean, what? It's a few free agent signings. No one of note. You know, Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, D-Law, and then some others that are still filtering in. With that, as we've not really had a chance because the last pod we did, Mitch, with Dan, we were talking about Cooper Kupp, weren't we? I think I clipped this up. I put it on our social medias just to say that as soon as the pod finished, Mitch predicted it would be announced. What happened?
Yeah, did too. Yeah, it happened. Why is it? That's not even the first time that's happened as well. We got a great guest on. We're talking about something that would be a franchise altering move. Go off air, happens. And funnily enough, Dan was on with who was he on with afterwards?
Jackson Bevins.
Jackson Bevins, yeah, he was on with Jackson Bevins straight after, and they got to open up their show with it, so that's great. Not
not bitter.
I hated the idea of it. I still kind of hate it, but for me, I might dislike the idea or something, but then as soon as they become a Seahawk, they have my full backing, right? So I'm behind it now, and there's clearly a vision for how that works with Kubiak's offense. So, but he's not going to be that field stretching burner that we really need. So maybe that sharpens the focus for the draft. Maybe we go looking for a wide receiver that can run under a 4-4 that can do that for us.
Which is something we'll be discussing as we go on through these pods and these series. So we've obviously got Cooper Kupp who's come on. I'm all aboard the Cooper Kupp signing. I said on X, there's something really romantic about bringing a hometown kid who's played elsewhere back to their hometown team. I think that's what this is. It's regardless of what people think and regardless of the whole, his drop off in the last 2 years since his Triple Crown, he is a proven, highly decorated wide receiver. You know, regardless of if he's a burner, if he's a field stretcher, his separation, everything he can bring, the leadership he can bring to an offense is, I think it's one of the best free agent signings I've seen from us for a long time on the offensive side of the football. And I'm intrigued, and I think we'll have a quick chat about what the Seahawks' offensive identity could be. But I'm intrigued to see what it will be when, and Cooper Kupp addressed this in his press conference about being predominantly a slot player. But it's not a matter of always being in the slot. Sometimes he lines up outside and he runs a slot route. And if we've got two players like that, that can only, to me, mean that there's going to be a lot of short and intermediate routes for JSN and Kupp with use of tight ends and running. But as we've got somebody on here who is a quarterback coach and an offensive coordinator, I'd like to pick Bryce's brain on what he thinks about this. So, Bryce, give it to us.
Okay, so for me with this signing, I really do like it. When you decided you were pivoting off of Geno and DK and you were going to buy into this Clint Kubiak scheme, one thing about it is target percentage. So in this offense, and you can go back, and I went back all the way to 1995, which is when Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak got together with Denver, which is where this system was born. And when you look at those teams that John Elway won his Super Bowls with, their back-to-back, they had two receivers and a threat in the middle and a tight end that stretched the seam. They had Shannon Sharp, you had Rod Smith, and you had Ed McCaffrey. Ed McCaffrey and Rod Smith were almost identical in what they could do. They both weren't guys that were going to take the top off, but they were guys that were going to run really good timing routes. They created good separation. But the other big thing is they were great blockers. And that's the thing when you look at this system and you look at how it's changed over the years since Kyle's taken it and since McVay's taken it. But there's a couple things that carry over. their burner receiver generally is not a high impact player throughout the entire season. His numbers aren't there. So what I'll break down some numbers for you. So when this offense was run from a 10-year period, 1995 to 2005 in Denver, targets to receivers as a whole, the max it ever got to when the receiver group got targeted in the passing game was just slightly above 55%. So half of your targets went to your receivers. The other half was split up between tight end and running back. When you then break that number down more thoroughly, between receiver 1 and 2, they generally shared 40% of the targets. Your receiver 3 and 6, like true receiver 3 and 6, were less than 15%. That is how this offense is run. So when you look at, when we're talking about skill sets, we're talking about guys we want to bring in. If you have two receivers in a JSN and Cooper Kupp that share similar skill sets, they're the guys you're going to see get the majority of the targets in that receiving room. You're not going to see a lot of targets going to your receiver 3, 4, and 5, like we were accustomed to last year with Ryan Krubb's system, where he's running a lot of 11 personnel and he's running a lot of empty and straight back things. And so the things that really come out of this group that's been successful is you look at, even when Gary Kubiak ran this offense with Peyton Manning, do you guys remember who those receivers were at that time? You had Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas. They weren't exactly burners. They weren't guys that were going to blow the top off of a defense and run by people like a DK Metcalf, for example. They were guys that ran reliable routes, blocked, could make things after the catch with yak yards, but they were physical in how they would present themselves. And even though Emmanuel Sanders was a smaller receiver, his role still fit. He was a willing blocker. He'd come in. And the other thing is you see they'll use 12 personnel, but they won't always use it the traditional way in Kubiak's system. They will get a move tight end and split him into the slot. And that's where you create that mismatch on a defense. So either they're rolling their safety down and now you're getting a much more one-hide centric defense, or they're having to plus out that linebacker or put that nickel there and they move that tight end. So when you look at some of the years of these offenses, you look at the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel actually carried a lot of similar skill sets. They were great after the catch. They weren't burners that were going to blow by you. They were physical. They wanted to block. They ran good routes between 20 and 10 yards. Your threat that was your big physical guy was George Kittle. You look even last year, look at Addison in Minnesota. When he came into the draft, everyone thought with Addison, he's a slot guy. That's where he's going to make all his living is in the slot. He's actually played a lot on the outside in that system in 2 receiver sets with Justin Jefferson. And again, he works his way. So when you look at this offense and you look at Cooper Kupp coming into it, Cooper Kupp's skill set does exactly what they need him to do. And that's where when you talk about a traditional X and a traditional Z and that, it doesn't really work that way in Kubiak's offense. You all need to be able to play every spot on the field and be comfortable in it. If you're not going to see the field.
The key thing I heard from that was a move tight end. Are you telling me that we may actually see Noah Fant do something this season?
If he's on the roster, I think there's a chance that there's a higher chance that they'd move off of Noah Fant, even though Mike McDonald said how much he likes him. When you look at the tight ends that are built into this system, you look at, for example, what LA's done down there with Higbee and Parkinson. You have a certain set of tight ends you're looking for that both have similar complementary skill sets. And that's the key thing.
If we kept Disley and then had someone like AJ Barner, that's
more of a fit. So that's where, if you look at this draft class, if you go and say, you keep AJ Barner because he's a perfect fit for this system, and then you pair him with like a Mason Taylor, now you've got a good set because you can run to both sides. You have 2 tight ends that are going to be able to help you set that edge. And you can do things with them where you see in the Kubiak system in this offense, they like to slide the pocket. And this is where I'm going to talk when we get to the O-line part at some point of how this will help our O-line. They move the pocket a lot in this system, and they run underneath back-cutting routes from the tight end, from the receivers that go away from the action, and they boot out and dump it into the flat. That's where you're going to see what I mean by your move tight ends and all-around tight ends. You're not looking for you're a vertical stretching fet like an Antonio Gates. You're looking for an all-around guy that can block, catch the ball, sit in the zones. Their tight ends are meant to stress defenses because they cause backers hell because they move and they sit in zones that they see the openings to.
So I'm shocked that you thought we were going to talk O-line. Like, who in Seahawks poddom talks O-line?
I know, right? Nobody. Never. We have a perfect O-line. It's not a problem. I'm burying my head in the sand. La 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 la.
Okay, so let's go on to let's talk QB, then we'll go O-line, and then we'll get into your draft crushes.
Okay.
But Sam Darnold, tell us, how do you think he's going to fit into this offense?
I think Sam Darnold's going to be. I think you're going to see a seamless change between Geno and him. I don't think you're going to see a drop off as much. Reason I say that is you're almost getting Geno back in 2022 to an extent, because you're getting a guy that had, when Sam Darnold, like, I love Sam coming out of the draft. When he was at USC, I thought this guy's really talented. He's got a lot of skills. He's a good leader. He's not ready to play right away. What did he go to? He went to a situation where they threw him into the fire with no weapons, no nothing, no proper offensive scheme built, anything. And he got crushed. And it's the same thing the Jets have done with Geno, Mark Sanchez, Zach Wilson. Like, you list on and on. The last good quarterback that they've really had there, and then don't even throw Brett Favre's name in that conversation, is either Chad Pennington or Vinny Testaverde. Those are the last guys that have really done anything for the Jets. And so when you look at Sam, people tend to think, oh, this is just this blip for him this year in Minnesota. Well, actually, when he was in Carolina and started the 6 games he did, they went 4-2.
Yeah.
He was playing good football. And then he took the opportunity, which I think is really key in this, is his own self-awareness of, I need to go somewhere where I'm going to learn how to play quarterback at this level, because what I'm doing isn't working. And so he went to San Francisco, got in a system that fits his skill set. Like the Kubiak system and the Mike Shanahan system is almost hand built for a quarterback of Darnold's skill set. He can move enough. He's got a big arm. He needs to get the ball out quick out of his hand. Don't make it super stressful. That's been the MO of this offense ever since you go back to Joe Montana. Joe Montana and Steve Young ran the same offense with Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren and that whole unit, and even Mike Shanahan. And when Mike Shanahan took over with Steve Young's MVP season in 1994 with the 49ers, and it was the same thing. 2 receivers, rollouts, boots, get the ball out of the hand, make it easy, stay in rhythm, do the timing things. That's what makes this offense so great and why it's stood the test of time. And so when I look at Sam Darnold, I go, you've got the weapons, you've got a Cooper Kupp, you've got a JSN, you've got the running backs in the backfield. You've now got an offensive staff that all knows this system. You are not trying to teach this system to anybody. Even on the passing game side with Jake Pete staying, he knows this system. It's what he grew up in with the Rams. So everyone's on the same page. You've also seen it from a player's point of view for guys year in and year out. Terminology is the same. It's going to allow them to hit the ground running, and it fits Sam's skill set. So I don't think you're going to see a drop-off. I think you might actually see a more efficient Sam Darnold this year than he even was in Minnesota. I
like it.
Well, that's positive.
I was going to say, I said this off air, like the whole, the sky is falling when we traded Geno. I don't get on board with that. It's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. And Geno has been a fantastic bridge QB for us. You know, he came in, stepped in when Russ got injured. He came in and was a starter. You know, he had the odd brain fart, which led to some crucial red zone interceptions, but he was fine. You know, he kept us winning with some winning seasons, did well sort of Mike Mack's first season, just missed the playoffs. But if you want a team to move forward, you need to bring in something new. And that's what we've done. We've torn down this offensive identity in inverted commas by trading DK, by cutting Tyler, by trading away Geno, and brought in something completely new. And I think if they can get Donald humming like he was last year with the Vikings, then I'm all for it. I think Kubiak could be really interesting what he's going to do with all these pieces going forward. Mitch, go on. You're looking at like,
Just over here smouldering. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I find the Darnold sort of sample size really, really interesting, because the Jets have always been a dumpster fire for QBs to be drafted. You know, it's not a good situation to go into for a young quarterback, and I don't like to look at what he put on tape there and be overly critical, because it was just horrific. Like he wasn't the worst thing there, and I always liked his attitude when it was terrible. He showed great character when the house was on fire. So that sample size you can't judge much of. And then he goes to the Vikings, and there's a huge uptick in his performance. And people like to say that that's just because he had Addison and Jefferson there. You know, so there's always this caveat to why he was bad or why he was good. And now he's going to a franchise in a transition. No one expects them to win lots of games. What can he do in this scenario? I think our franchise for the next 3 years or 2 years, however long we end up actually keeping him, that will be a real true test of him. We know he's got the character. We know he's got the talent. He hasn't shown it consistently. There's some small print under the stats that he put up in at the Vikings because of the talent around him. So what can he do with us? That is going to tell the league who he is. So that's where I stand on the Darnold thing. I do think he's going to be at the same sort of level that we got from Geno. I just hope it was 2022 Geno, not 2023 or 4 Geno. But
the way that I look at this is you're going to get, I think, a higher ceiling with Sam Darnold overall than you ever got with Geno. If he hits it, you also have the potential for the floor to be a lot lower. And so you're kind of stuck in this, and that's where this change is exciting. I think you're going to get the higher ceiling Sam Darnold for the fact of, and I agree with you, like you're talking about his sample sizes and what he's done, what he hasn't done. When we look at Kevin O'Connell's system, it is 3 parts now removed from the origin source. And that's the one thing I like about this hire of Clint Kubiak with bringing in Sam Darnold in this offense is there are 2 guys that built this offense, Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak. So the 2 main guys that have grown up in it the most and understand the inner workings of it the most are Clint, his brother, who's on the 49er staff, and Kyle. McVay has taken it and added parts from the Air Coryell system that he learned from Gruden when he was on Gruden's staff in Tampa Bay. And those are kind of the wrinkles you see now with them and their run scheme changing and stuff. But the thing that I will say for Sam in this is you are asking a quarterback now in a system where he doesn't have to make checks at the line. And that's the biggest change in this offense. The center makes all the protection and line adjustments. So for the quarterback, walking up and being, okay, I'm just looking at the linebackers now to the safeties in that secondary, you're cutting down the processing impact on a quarterback drastically because you're basically cutting it in half to almost a quarter of what they normally have to do. And where you look at Grubb's system last year, they weren't asking the line to do a lot. It was very much all on Geno. And even in Shane Waldron's system, it was all on Geno. And so that's where you're going to see the change now, where you're going to a quarterback and going, hey, cool, figure out what coverage they are, figure out if there's a hot read here, if we need to check something. Don't worry about the line. That's going to be taking care of the center.
Like it. Well, there's 2 things to discuss there then. You talk about running back, and there was news coming out this week that the Raiders have inquired about trading for Ken Walker. So let's do a very quick bit on that. So we'll start with Bryce as our guest. If someone came in with a decent offer for Ken Walker, would you trade him and why?
What is a decent offer?
Well, you tell us what you think a decent offer is, sir.
I think, and so what I can say about that rumor is that it's actually not accurate at all. It's basically based off a Bleacher Report scenario.
I'm going hyperbole.
I know. I'm stating from what I know from talking to people, it never really did happen. But anyhow, I would say if you're going to come calling for Ken Walker, it would have to probably be at minimum a 3rd round pick. And it can't be, we're talking the last 2 picks of the 3rd round. We're talking mid-3rd or higher to start that conversation. The reason I say that is because of the system they're about to put in and run is literally a Ken Walker built system. And so you're going to see Ken Walker, I think, explode this year back to what you saw as a rookie when he was in Shane Waldron's version of this offense, and they did run a lot of zone plays. And this is built for his skill set. That was a big part, I think, in why they hired Clint Kubiak, was because of what this offensive line scheme and the round blocking scheme is built upon, really blows up Ken Walker's abilities. I think there is more of a conversation to be had if you're going to trade a running back that you trade Zach Charbonnet.
Oh, that hurts me.
Yeah,
I know it does.
It hurts me as well, but I can see the reasoning for it because, in my opinion, he's got RB1 ability in this league, and we've got Kenny McIntosh, who is on minimal cap hit due to being a 7th round pick.
And you have a very deep receiving car. Yeah, exactly.
This draft is deep in running backs, so I'd hate to see it because he's been with us 2 years, but I could see the sense in it. Mitch, you said that'd hurt you, but let's go on to Ken Walker. If someone came calling for Ken Walker, what would you say it would be a good return? And why?
Yeah, I'm with Bryce on the 3rd. I think I'd love to see us get a 2nd back because obviously we took him in the 2nd round. But what you have to look at, in my opinion, is the fact that he is in the final year of his contract this year. If we are planning to keep him, we are then committed to paying him. People don't like paying running backs in this league because they take an awful lot of punishment. And I know we shouldn't look at it like a cattle market, but in reality it is. And if you're going to commit to paying Ken Walker a 3-year extension on, what do we reckon, Bryce, 10 million a year, 9 million a year, and plus incentives, you're paying a guy that has played approximately half the snaps, or was fit on half the game days so far in his rookie contract. Running backs do not get more durable in this league. They take an absolute pounding, and it takes serious specimens to really continue to 28, 29, 30 and stay fit. If he's not fit as a rookie, why on earth are you committing so much money to that player? So if someone comes in with a third round pick or a 2nd and a pick swap, something like that, you take that and you take the money to the bank and you pick a running back in this draft, which you both said super deep in great quality running backs. The timing's good for us for the not having to extend him. The timing's great because there are running backs galore in this draft. And it also, he gets to go off. He's then committed that if you trade for him, you're then committed to paying him. So you've looked after Ken in the respect that you've guaranteed him 3 more years in this league on big money. So it's not like we've done him dirty by getting rid. He's going to get a massive payday. So I think that makes sense for every party. Someone's getting a blue chip running back. We're not having to pay. We're getting a new running back on a cheap deal, and he makes bank. So it ticks so many boxes. It's a shame that it's a hypothetical because I would have snapped that off and taken another pick on day 1 and 2.
It's also a shame because, like Bryce said, this scheme is designed for someone of Ken Walker's skill set, and he could absolutely explode. But if he absolutely explodes, that means if we do decide to re-sign him, then you are looking at that 9-10 million plus incentives. And although with the cap going up,
there is one caveat that I will say in Ken Walker that might get him at a lower price, has been his durability. That's the one thing. If we're talking about a guy that has played 3 years, missed 3 games over a 3-year period, there's more to say he's going to get the higher end of that contract. He has missed substantial time in multiple games at a point. So I think that's where you could see that cap hit come down for him and that contract be worked where he has to hit certain durability incentives to max out his contract extension. And the reason why I think Charbonnet is a better trade piece in some respects than K9. I get K9 is the superior athlete. He is the better overall running back in what he does. Charbonnet doesn't fit this system. He's a gap power scheme guy, which is why when they moved to that the second half of last year, you saw him explode because it's straight downhill running for him. 2, a team that trades for him will get him on this year and next year's rookie deal and then can choose to extend him. So you are basically giving them a 2-year window on top of where they think he would fit in this draft class. If Zach Charbonnet was in this draft class, he is one of the, I'd say, probably top 10 backs in this draft class. And it's not, he's probably at the higher part of that than he is at the lower. I think there is a very good chance Seattle will take a running back this year because I think there is a good chance that Charbonnet and Walker, one of them, will not be on the roster next year.
Does this mean that my boy Kenny Mack's going to get more game time? Because I think this scheme will be will be a good fit for him as well.
Yep, it will be.
Oh, yes, I love hearing that. As we like to do on this pod, we're going to get to some of the comments. We could talk O-line very briefly, but I think everyone's done that to death. Do you not think? And I think there's this. I think the chat would explode if we talked O-line, and it would be exploding with exploitives. And I think that's something we can do that another time. Let's do that after the draft, Bryce. We'll have a good talk about that.
Sounds good to me.
So a couple that have come in. So Martin Lawrence has said, I think they could trade Ken Walker and take a running back in the draft because this is a good RB class. I think it would be good with this approach, to be honest. So I'd be good. I think a lot of people would be. But as Bryce has said, this is a scheme designed for someone with Ken Walker's skill set. I'm not going to be sad about it because the fantasy league that Mitch and I are in, where Mitch has been a massive turncoat and taken charge of the LA Rams, I have the Seattle Seahawks, so that means my running backs will be scoring loads of points.
Did you see, by the way, this is way off topic, did you see the promo video that they released today?
Oh,
did you see what they did to me?
I saw the picture. I saw did you also see they called me Joel Edwards? It's my alter ego.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. And we've also got Randy Roberts has come in and said perhaps a better idea would be to sign K9 to an extension of 3 years now because he hasn't hopped off and might pop off in the season. That way, you're not overpaying him.
I think if you were to look at the guys that are up for extension, my top 3 guys that are up for extension, Charles Cross. Sorry, I should say 4, but one's with a caveat. So it would be Charles Cross, it would be K9, and it would be Kobe Bryant being another one because Kobe's up for an extension, and you do not want to let that man hit the market considering what he did. And then the one with the caveat is Abe Lucas. I don't think, if that's how they view this and what they're trying to do now, I think that's where you start allocating your money. You don't allocate it to a on and off supposedly number 1 corner in Reek Woolen. And that's why I think those are the guys that they will focus on. And again, Boy Mafe, I left out of that. I think he has to show that he can continually do what he's doing to get the money he's looking for.
Nice. And our good friend, Dan Viennes, has come in with a super chat here. So if they can get Walker to be more decisive and get north-south quicker, he can explode in this scheme. He could be Alvin Kamara. Could you imagine that? Alvin Kamara, consistently, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the league.
That was my draft comp for K9 when he came out, was Alvin Kamara.
It's a solid comment. Hi, Dan. Thanks for joining. Thanks for everyone else joining as well. It's amazing having people like Bryce and Dan previously to come on. We've got many more to come on the 12 Talk pod. We've also got a few things that we're going to be coming up with by way of draft crushes very soon. Before we get into anything, now, we at the 12 Talk podcast are the UK Seahawks official podcast. We're very proud. So we were asked to become the official podcast of UK Seahawkers. And if you want to become a UK Seahawker, anyone can from anywhere in the world. It's £12 for an individual membership, £20 for a family membership up to 4, with £5 postage for anyone outside the UK. You get some goodies, which I'll show you very shortly. Access to this 10% discount at the Pro Shop. You get eligible for game day field passes, plenty more, and you get our meetups as well, of which one is coming up in May. these are the goodies we've got this year. You get your wristband. In fact, I've got them on my desk somewhere. We've got 2 coaters. We've got a new patch. There we go. You also get your card carrier members, Mitch. You also get your membership card as well. And our meetup this year is in Glasgow on the 3rd of May. You have to be a member. It's £5 to come and join us. We're going to have beers. We'll be talking Seahawks all night with the UK Seahawks. It's going to be amazing. Mitch and I will be there interviewing some UK Seahawks as well to put on a pod together. And let's see what everyone else is thinking. And we're also proud supporters of the Roman Cancer Trust. The Seahawk a month is back as well. But the Robbie Cancer Trust is a UK germ cell cancer charity, which is all about testicular and ovarian cancer. If you've been affected, by all means, please head to their website. And this gentleman here wearing the massive foam ball bag is Toby. He's the chairman. He is running 500k for charity with the aim to raise £240,000 and create some fantastic life-saving initiatives, all in favour of germ cell and testicular and ovarian cancer. So thank you very much. We'd like to shout them out every single week because we're so proud to actually be supporting people like that. But shall we talk draft crushes? This is why we're here. We've got to that point now. And Bryce, you are our QB guru. You are the ex-QB. You are the QB coach and offensive coordinator. So you've got some...
I had to put it on. Sorry, I had to do it.
Oh, I love having Dan in here. This is great.
I'll talk to Toby, mate. To be honest, I've just saw a picture of him running the Colchester half marathon, and he looked extremely happy, but slightly uncomfortable at the same time. But yeah, they're hashtags as well. Hashtag talking bollocks and hashtag not overreacting. They're a brilliant charity. So let's talk draft crushes. Let's start with QBs, Bryce, and then we've got some non-QBs. We've got a few honourable mentions. We've got a little bit of time. So who would you like to start with?
So I know I'm going to take 2 QBs right out of this that I don't think are going to be there for the Seahawks, and that's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I don't even think they're going to be relatively part of that conversation.
Good.
So the initial one that I know everyone's going to say in the chat and everything is Jackson Dart. I'm not going to go with Jackson Dart because I don't think he's worth a first-round pick. Love the kid. I think he's a second-round grade at best, and I think he's a guy that is getting hyped up because of the lack of true top prospects at the quarterback position this year. So for me, I'm going to start with one that most people thought I would start with, but I'm not going to, is Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. So Riley Leonard to me is an interesting case study. So I watched him through the season at Notre Dame, went back and watched his previous film from when he was at Duke and other places he's been. He is an interesting prospect because he shows you flashes where you look at him and you go, wow, like he threw that so well on anticipation and timing into that window and got the ball there. And then you see him through other passes and you're like, wow, you were like 3 steps too late. That was a horrible decision. And you kind of saw that through the college football playoff a bit with him, I think, when you looked at some of his throws that he made in the Ohio State National Championship versus some of the throws he made against Indiana and the cold in Notre Dame. He's a great athlete. He's probably one of the better athletes in this class at the QB position. The thing I like about him, though, is when he's under pressure. So we're talking guys in his face. He has an 80% completion percentage when he's under pressure. So that means guys bearing down on him, blitz is coming, whatever. He makes the right read. He throws a good ball. The thing, though, when I look at him is you don't see a massive amount of production. So this last year at Notre Dame, he only threw for 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He completed 62% of his passes for about 7 yards an attempt, but he ran for over 700 yards and 8 touchdowns. And part of his issue has been durability. He's had some injuries. My weaknesses for him, he's very inconsistent with his mechanics. Now, that's something I've seen since Senior Bowl to some of the videos he's been posting of him working out and doing things. And I'm very interested to see when he does his pro day, what it looks like. But his off-target rate is 10%, which is pretty high for a quarterback. That's kind of a scary number that he's that inconsistent. And I think he's got some limited arm strength. Like, his max out of his throw I've seen like down the field is about 55 yards. I like usually my quarterback at the NFL to be able to at least get at 60. That's roughly the range I'd like to see. So those are a couple things. Like I project him to be around, at the earliest I could see him going is late round 4. Like some team really falls in love with him because he's got great character. You listen to the kid talk, the interviews, he's a really likable guy. You can see he was a leader at Notre Dame, came in there for 1 year, got named a captain. So those are some traits you want to see. Now with a fit with the Seahawks, you know, his rushing ability and his mobility adds to the Kubiak boot package and stuff. But I don't see him coming in and necessarily beating out a Sam Howell right away. I think he's a guy you take as your developmental prospect of, hey, we want to see if he can become our backup and then eventually our starter a couple years down the line. So for me, that's kind of where I sit with Riley Leonard. Mitch looks...
Riley. No, it's a really interesting take. There's a lot there I agree with. There's some things that I would mention as well. I mean, and out of context, this is the strangest question you'll probably hear asked on an American football podcast. But what do you know about his toe? Because he obviously had that really. I mean, no toe injury should ever be serious, but he had a. Oh, Josh, muted.
What kind of podcast have we become?
Yeah.
I mean, let's not shame anyone here, Josh. People are into what they're into, and I want to talk about toes. So the whole toe thing was basically he'd had a bad toe injury, and it took ages of time for doctors to sign him off to play. And I worry a little bit about a quarterback that relies so much on his legs to make him a viable option to take in a draft because he's got that dual threat. If that toe is a problem going forward, the last player on the pitch you want to have durability concerns is your quarterback. So do you know, have you heard anything about
I believe his so the toe injury was basically a severe case of turf toe, essentially tore the ligaments on his toe. And the problem is I believe it was his right foot. And that's concerning because for a quarterback even throwing, let alone his running ability, it's his rotational factor of ground force and using the balls of your feet to turn, and your toe gets a lot, especially your larger big toe gets a lot of exposure to that. And if you're struggling with that, from what I understand, he's cleared, but if you're struggling with that, it's going to then create issues with your throwing mechanics, which I know for a fact is now where it leads to his bad throwing mechanics, because it's a lot of lower body issues. It's not an upper body issue with his mechanics. It's a lot of lower body not creating enough force. Then his arm takes over and he starts missing throws. And so that's where I agree with you, Mitch. Like that's why for me, he's a round 5 to 7 developmental guy where, hey, we're willing to take a swing because there is a substantial upside, but there is that concern of, hey, if this flares up again, we haven't invested a substantial amount into a guy that may never really turn into what we thought he was going to turn into.
Yeah, like that. I wanted to bring that bit up.
Just like I say silent on these.
Pod.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, Josh always stays silent on these.
I you know, it's got to that point with my personal working life and everything else that, unlike last year, I have not had the opportunity to do my in-depth sort of like scouting on these people. So I'm relying on you guys, much like everyone else watching this pod, to fill me in and send me links to videos and reports. Luckily, Bryce, you sent us a lot of your QB reports, so sometimes I actually get a chance to read those.
Well, I will send you my crush breakdown after this one, so you can get that long document. Yes. Since you saw the names, I will send you my breakdown. So let's go to Will Howard, Mr. National Championship. Everyone kind of has fallen in love with him. I really liked what I saw out of Will Howard during his college football playoff. I saw a quarterback that could make NFL throws, that, you know, made NFL plays too, where it wasn't, yes, he had a star-studded team at Ohio State, but he made plays in those games to help win, not just get carried by the talent around him. Like his third down throw against Notre Dame to seal the game there. Those are some of the things you want to see from your quarterback. Now, the strengths for him. He's got a strong arm. He can push the ball 60 yards down the field. We've seen him do it. He has experience. He'll be 24 as a rookie, so he's got a lot of playing experience, a lot of college starts, which are things you want to see. Now, he has some poise. He's a 68% completion guy when blitzed. So that's a good thing you're going to see. You're going to see that pressure. You want to see a guy identify it, make the right throw and the right read. Now, his 40-yard dash time hurt him, and his mobility is not as good as, say, a Riley Leonard, which I think will hurt him at the NFL level because everyone's faster. Again, he has footwork issues. Like when you see him miss throws, his feet are very happy. He looks like happy feet in the pocket, like the penguin. They're constantly bouncing. And as a quarterback, there are moments where, yes, you want your feet and you want to be on the balls of your feet, but you don't want to be bouncing. You want to be able to be settled in control, slide, glide through that pocket, and then be able to stick your foot in the ground and make the throw. And when you watch Will Howard, you see moments of that where that's a struggle for him, where he gets a little too anxious and starts popping his feet up and missing throws. Again, for me, he's got the size. He's 6'4", he's 237. You know, in Ohio State, he threw for 3,200 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He completed 65% of them with a roughly 8-yard completion per attempt. But again, for me, he's a developmental guy. Like I would take him in the 3rd round, earliest for me. I think there's a lot of more upside to him and less injury history that you'd get with a Riley Leonard. But there's still some concerns with his throwing, his decision-making to a point. You want to see that carry over. He's a perfect guy where I would say Will Howard could come into Seattle and actually push Sam Howell, because a lot of the issues Sam Howell has are the same issues Will Howard has. But Will Howard might be able to break those where Sam Howell's kind of, I think, settled into a lot of those as his NFL career is now more cemented. So that's where I look at, if you bring in a Will Howard, he's more coming in to beat out Sam Howell this year and be your backup. And then potentially, depending on what goes on with Sam Darnold, turns out to be a, eventual heir apparent. But when I look at Will Howard, to me, my comp for him is a poor man Sam Darnold, weirdly enough, because he shares a lot of the same traits that Sam Darnold had coming out of college. But I think he lacks a lot of the elite skills that Sam does have.
Yeah, I like that. My profile for him has a underscored line in red, which was terrible combine without familiarity. So you've mentioned the 40 time, but my big takeaway from the combine was whenever a quarterback comes out of Ohio State, the big underlying or that the elephant in the room is an average quarterback can be good at Ohio because their wide receiver conveyor belt is unbelievable. That the only college that creates more high quality wide receivers is LSU, I would say. So if a quarterback goes and starts throwing to wide receivers they've never thrown to at the combine, and they're an Ohio State quarterback and they're mistiming them, overthrowing them, it suddenly puts that line in bold letters that he is an Ohio State quarterback that struggled to throw to unfamiliar targets or lesser quality wide receivers.
So a thing that stood out for me, and it plays right into what you're talking about, Mitch, was him not participating in the Senior Bowl. Riley Leonard, who had played in the exact same amount of games, participated in the Senior Bowl, and Will Howard didn't. And so when I had conversations with other Seahawks content creators, Michael Thompson, Dan Viens, I had said, this might bite him in the ass if he does not have a good combine and he comes out, and that's what happened. He struggled, and I think he has really hurt his draft stock. Now, I think his pro day is going to go fine because he's going to be throwing to his guys. But that's going to be the thing of, okay, you're not like, how long is it going to take you to adjust to not throwing to your guys at, the NFL level to be more consistent and be more accurate? So that's why, again, I say Will Howard is a developmental guy. He's a guy that you bring in to compete for the 2 spot. If he wins it, great, and shows you some things, awesome, because there is upside there. And there's more upside there than I think there is with Riley Leonard. But again, he's not someone you're going, yeah, we're banging the table, we need to take Will Howard at some point in this draft.
Yeah, I agree. Massively agree.
So I have another one here, and this guy is my true favorite. I have been on him from the very start. I love this guy, and that's Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. Kyle McCord for me, so we talk about prototypical size. He's 6'3", 215. Played at a big program at Ohio State. They were 10-1 with him. The one loss against Michigan, or I think they were 11-1, sorry. So the one loss was against Michigan, yep. and basically got told, hey, we're bringing in Will Howard and you're out, which again, I find rather puzzling. And he moved on and he goes to a program. He doesn't go and transfer to an Alabama or one of these other big programs. He goes to Syracuse, which isn't exactly known to being a quarterback factory or producing high offense or anything. Goes there and breaks a bunch of ACC passing records that were held by Deshaun Watson and other, really good quarterbacks that have come through the Clemson program. Now, we look at his numbers. He threw for 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, completed 68% of his passes with an unfamiliar receiving core that he had never really worked with until he had got to that school. And he averaged 8.2 yards per attempt. So he's pushing that ball. It's not little checkdowns. We're talking like to the sticks or where his throws are going. His strengths. So his quick release. He gets the ball out in under 2.6 seconds on average. So he is processing. He is identifying where that ball needs to go, and it is coming out. His short to intermediate accuracy, which I will caveat is a big thing in the Clint Kubiak offense in the West Coast. He completed 70% of his passes from 0 to 12 yards. He was poised under pressure, completing 65% of his passes when blitzed. Now, the weakness with him is he's not nearly as mobile as Leonard or Howard. Like, he has mobility, but he's nowhere near the athletes they are. His 40-yard dash time was roughly, I believe, just under 4.8, I think it was. I can't remember exactly. Only rushed for 120 yards. Now, the one thing I will say is he had a tendency at Ohio State to lock onto his primary reads. He had like 8 turnover-worthy plays at Ohio State. That dropped significantly at Syracuse down to 3 turnover-worthy plays. So when I look at him, he's got an elite arm. He can make all the throws you want, and he fits into this offensive scheme. Now that, yes, again, with all these guys, there's going to be issues with him. His biggest issue is he's just not the athlete the other quarterbacks are in this class. But we talk about a fit for the Seahawks. His biggest thing is on his drop back percentage, he had a completion percentage of 68 off of play action. So when we're talking about a scheme fit, there's going to be more play action this year. Hallelujah. And you're going to see a guy that could potentially fit into it. This is where I see a guy like Kyle McCord. He is a better fit to come in. I think he's an upgrade over Sam Howell personally, right off the bat. Just what he's been able to do at college is better. And I think he's a guy that you could eventually turn the keys over to if you don't like Sam Darnold. But again, you're not in a situation where this guy is someone that you're taking in a round 1 or round 2. He can fall to you in round 4 through 7. You take him and you bring him in. He, to me, is the best option. I know there's people that will slam the table for Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart gives me a lot of Drew Lock vibes in some respects. And Tyler Shuck scares me because of his age. You need to start that guy sooner than later. I think Tyler Shuck has probably the best arm in the draft, like pure arm and throwing ability. But when you look at all encompassing and we're talking about taking a quarterback that we can develop and bring along, I think Kyle McCord might give you the best option.
Yeah, I really like Kyle McCord. The big, I mean, I don't want to just chime in with negatives here, but my biggest knock on Kyle McCord is the errors that have come when he's tried to fit the ball into tight windows as well. And I think he stays with his first option a little bit too long at the expense of taking smaller gains underneath. But other than that, I love how he maneuvers around the pocket. He's really, really good at sort of giving himself an extra second, sensing pressure, maneuvering around. He's got superb mechanics, and he's a good decision maker generally. It's just those tight windows he plays a bit of hero ball sometimes. But otherwise, I do think he's very solid for where you'll get him in this draft. He is a day 2 guy. We've got a lot of picks in there. And the deep ball means that everything is turned on, right, for him as an option. So not surprised to see him on this list from you.
I like it. There's a couple of comments I just want to throw up here. I'm not going to throw up any up from a young lady or man named Sylvia, who has just decided to venture into the chat. Bryce, that's all your chat, by the way. That's a HawksZone rundown. So,
oh, lovely, yeah. No idea where that came from.
That is a spicy comment.
That is a spicy. Well, it all started with the whole toe thing, Mitch. Like, this is where it all went down.
That's it. The algorithm's ruined now, Mitch. That's it.
I've ruined it. We've just got feet stuff and
it's going in
Sylvia
different
in the
places.
chat.
Yeah. Right. So first of all, Brian Myers, McCord is QB4 all day. And if anyone's watching this and sees Mitch giggling, it's purely because he is 100% watching the chat. Right. Right. So we've got Gary, a member of our Discord as well. What do you guys think about selecting Kyle McCord around rounds 3 to 4 as a project? Seems interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where you probably are going to look for him. Now, if he comes out and has a phenomenal pro day and starts going on visits and really starts jumping up the board, the earliest I can see Kyle McCord going, like the absolute earliest, and this is if a team like a Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders are off the board, late round 2, early round 3 is where I think is his max ceiling.
Oh, well, Thrill House thinks rounds 3 to 4 is a major reach for McCord, especially since we signed Darnold. I think Darnold has more ceiling, and Seattle will be calming place for him.
I totally agree. I think Darnold does have it. Like, when we're talking about this, we're talking about developmental guys across the board. There is nobody in this class for me, even Cam Ward and Shador Sanders in this class for me. I don't look at and go franchise quarterback like we had last year with Bo Nix, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, like all of those guys. This class doesn't even come close. It's better than the Kenny Pickett draft year and that class. But again, all these guys you're taking, they should be worse than your starter and be brought in as developmental potential starters.
Yeah, agreed. So I still can't get over that chat.
I can't look at the chat right now. I just put it off to the side.
I just like there's one comment for anyone who can't see these. You can probably see them on the HawksZone rundown chat when it gets a live replay. Sylvia's talking about holes, and Brian Myers has come up with a fantastic retort.
I agree.
Hawks have too many holes to pick a QB before round 5.
Well done, Brian. Well done. Bravo, sir.
Oh God. Well, that's been the upside.
This is the first for us, gentlemen.
It's what happens. You see, you grow and grow and grow.
Oh, yeah.
This is what happens. See, Mitch, you and I, just the natural slow growth. We're quite happy with that because we don't get wrong-uns in our chat. So,
and then we get Bryce, and I talk about toes. And
it just spirals.
Really, I'm sorry.
Do you know what this says to me? You two should never be on the same pod again.
Well, we nearly.
The algorithm now knows.
We nearly had our own.
We almost had our own pod.
We almost had our own podcast, the two of us, and this is just a little snapshot of what it could turn into.
Could you imagine? Anyway, let's get past toes and holes. There's a song in there somewhere. Bryce, who else have you got? Give us some more draft.
Okay,
issues,
so
mate.
I'll give you another quarterback. I'll give you Jackson Dart, my breakdown of Jackson Dart. So 6'2", 215. He amassed, 4,500 total yards last year, almost threw for 4,000. He ran for 625. So you're getting the passing side of a Kyle McCord, meets a bit of the Riley Leonard mobility. 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completed 70% of his passes, averaged 9 yards an attempt. He hasn't, probably in this class, he has a top 3 arm in this class for just overall strength. He can throw at 65 yards. The throw in the bowl game versus Duke, he's rolling to his left, turns and flips it right down to the 2-yard line on a row. Those are an elite level kind of throw. His throwing on the run is kind of what separates him a bit from some of these other quarterbacks. Throwing on the run outside the pocket, he had a 75% completion percentage. That is a good number for a guy outside the pocket moving. Mm-hmm. He's a very good rusher. He can move. Now, see, the thing for me with him that I noticed a bit watching his game and going back and diving into it, because I really liked him coming out. And then I went and started diving into it more and more when all this hype started to build around him. I was like, okay, like his hype's getting really big, really quickly. An area for me is his processing speed. And so what I mean by that is we talked about Kyle McCord can get the ball out in under 2.6 seconds on average. So we're talking like he's almost getting it out very quickly. Like he's identifying what he's seeing and that ball's coming out. Jackson Dart is closer to 3 on average, which is quite a bit of time for a quarterback, 3 seconds to process, get the ball out of your hand. And so that's kind of a worry thing. He also had 10 turnover worthy plays. So we talk about, with Kyle McCord and making throws that are a little bit risky. Jackson Dart is also one of those guys that is going to take shots into areas sometimes that you're going, hey, there's an easier check down, hit that, live for the next play. He's more likely to throw that ball down the field. And, again, I'd say he's a consensus. He's going to go in the first round. I think some team's going to get in love with him and they're going to take him in the first round. Again, he fits the Kubiak system. I just do not see the Seahawks taking him again because he, to me, is almost, again, a lower version Sam Darnold. If we're talking about a guy we already have on our roster, Jackson Dart has a lot of the same characteristics. He can move. Has an elite arm. He does certain things. But again, he's not a guy you're looking to start right away. He's going to be sitting on your bench for a year or two. And that's where I look at it and I go, if he fell into round 2 at pick 50 and Seattle fell in love with him, I'm okay there taking him. I'm not okay at pick 18 or even a trade back scenario into the lower 20s to take him. He is a second round talent at max for me.
Yeah.
If you were to take him and put him in last year's class, he's probably a third round pick.
There's nowhere in God's green earth we're taking a quarterback in round 1 this year.
I don't think so, no.
But based on the limited scouting I've done and my knowledge of this quarterback class, I don't even think Shedeur Sanders is a top 10 pick. But he'll go top 10 because it's literally him or Cam Ward, unless someone, like you said, falls in love with Jackson Dart and he ends up flipping that with Shedeur Sanders. I've been quite vocal in the fact that I'm not a Sanders fan. Because it's not just, I think, his limited ability. I think it's also his attitude and the fact that the baggage you've got prime time coming with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot for a franchise to deal with.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, on Jackson Dart, before we move off, I've comped him for quite a long time to Bo Nix, but obviously Bo Nix coming into the league was an older prospect. Jackson Dart's 21 or might be 22 in.
I think he's 22 when the NFL season will start.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the thing I really like about him is how good he is going off script. When the play breaks down, he's really good improvising and making the most of a mess. And he throws with beautiful touch as well. So, I think if he becomes a starter a few years down the line, he's going to be a great quarterback to enjoy watching. I think he's a gunslinger. If it all goes, Pete Tong, he's going to be great to watch improvising, and there'll be highlight reels after highlight reels of him doing magical stuff. I just don't like what you're going to have to pay draft capital wise to get him this year, because I think whoever drafts him, they're going to be reaching, and you're going to miss out on a player that can contribute to your roster immediately. And that's the only real thing I can say about Jackson Dart and why I don't want him. If like you said, he falls to the second round and we've got 2 picks there, I'm not saying you run to the podium.
No, but there's
really
more of a conversation.
Yeah, I really wouldn't hate it.
That's the thing for me with this class is this does set up well for Seattle to start taking a swing at a quarterback. But what I will caveat that with is I was more of a component for Seattle drafting a QB this year when Geno Smith was more on the roster. He is 35 years old. We have now reset our room 7 years. So we have a quarterback with 6 years of NFL experience that is 27. And Tyler Shuck, who to me might be the best step in and pro ready guy in this class, in my personal opinion. He is going to be 26 next, like the start of this season. So if you are taking a Tyler Shuck, you are basically banking on in a year or two him being your starting quarterback if you are taking him anywhere in round 1 or 2. And that's why for me, the other players that I mentioned, the Kyle McCords, the Riley Leonards, the Will Howards, make more sense for Seattle now that you've reset your room that you can take in round 3 or 4. If the board is falling a certain way and they may be the highest graded player on your board at that point, then you take a shot at them at that point. But you don't do it if there is some other elite prospect that can help you fill another area because you have an established quarterback as your number one now in Sam Darnold.
I like it. So we have got, I think we'll finish this with a quick mock draft as well. But you've got a couple more, haven't you? Let's give you, all right, go on. Give us two more, Bryce. And then we've got a couple of comments.
More quarterbacks. Give me two. I'm going to go with two guys that are not quarterbacks. Okay, so one of the running backs I have fallen in love with in this draft is Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. He, to me, is a scheme fit in the zone because he's a bit of more of a bruiser than a Ken Walker, but he's faster than a Zach Charbonnet. And so for me, that's where I look at with him. He's 6 foot, 225 pounds. Last year, he rushed for 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns and averaged 6.5 yards per carry on an Iowa team that had no receiving threats. They basically knew they were going to run the ball, and this guy still was able to turn out 6 yards per carry. His strengths, his vision, his toughness, his run grade was an 88.4 on PFF, and he is a zone scheme fit. Like, he fits the offense we're trying to run. Now, his weakness, he's not a burner. He's not running by anybody, and they didn't use him as much out of the backfield as some other running backs get used. He only had 20 catches for 180 yards. But when I look at a guy that I want to come and fill in this scheme, you're not going to see a lot of passes to the back in this scheme. Not like, kind of what we thought we might see even last year. Those are going to go to your tight end. If they are anything, it's a dump into the flat, which isn't. You're not seeing running backs in this offense motioning out and taking off and running a post route. Like, that's just not happening. So Caleb Johnson's a running back for me that I would be really intrigued with if Seattle took a shot on. And then the other part for me is tight ends. So I have fallen in love with Mason Taylor out of LSU. He, to me, is my favorite tight end in this class. He's 6'5", 255. He has NFL genes, obviously, in his bloodline. He has very reliable hands, 2% drop rate. That is ridiculously good for a tight end. He get route running, separation 15% of the time as a tight end, which is another really good thing to be looking for. Son of Jason Taylor, like I said. Now, his blocking needs work. He's not a super great blocker, but he's good enough to be your tight end 2 or your main receiving tight end in this offense. And again, you saw him run the gauntlet. Like, I've never seen a guy run the gauntlet at the combine that has literally stayed right on that line all the way through. I just think he comes in and he is going to be a guy that gives you more overall, I think, in the long term of his skill set than, say, a Noah Fanning. You pair him with an AJ Barner, you're going to have a 2 tight end scheme that's going to scare teams because they're going to go, we can't just sit there and let the tight ends run down the seam on us and cause problems.
There you go.
Those are my other 2.
I like it. And here we go. Brian back in the chat has just said, no Luke Lockie slander, because that is one of Mitch's guys as well.
I like him. I do.
I'm a big fan. But I'll leave it there. We're going to do a mock draft, and I can't wait.
So but before we get to the mock, there's a couple of comments that I've stashed away because I think they deserve sort of talking about. And these guys put these in right at the start. So first of all, we've got Kevin Dilly. Have you guys watched tape on Tyrone Bowden Jr., 6'7", 200 pounds, ran a 4.3 at his pro day?
I have not, actually.
You got to now, though. Those are some numbers.
There you go.
Yeah, now I'll have to start taking a look, see.
Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin again. This isn't a QB, but wide receiver, yeah, Tyrone Bowden out of Arkansas is now on my radar. His stats aren't great, but his physicality are really good for his size. So there you go. Let's keep an eye on Tyrone Bowden. Levi, who regular viewer, thank you. So is Tyler Warren an option in this draft or wrong skill set?
I think
in the top 10, maybe.
Yeah, if you have a top 10 pick, he might be. I look at him and I go, he's not going to be there. And if he somehow is there, there's some sort of issue that's come up medically or something that has caused him to fall. Like I see a team like I don't see him realistically getting by the Colts or the Bengals. I think they're going to take and add that type of a piece there to their situation. So I would love him. I think Loveland's more in play for Seattle than Tyler Warren is.
I think based on the Bengals cap situation, having paid 3 players something like 45% of their cap space, they're going to need some high value draft pieces. So Martin's come in with a chat here as well, saying, should we take a defensive end in this draft? And we were talking about this off air. It's a good class and we could get a good player in the later rounds. I know we have 4 DNs already, but I have concerns on Nwosu and Lawrence staying fit all season.
I am very much a component of taking a DN with our first pick and an edge rusher because Nwosu has injury issues. He's not getting any younger. Leonard Williams and D. Lawrence are both guys that are over 30, and we could start to see a decline, even though Williams had a phenomenal year last year. Don't get me wrong. I think that's a more pressing need, and you have 2 B-level players in Derek Hall and Mafe, one who you may have to pay this year. I don't know if you want to pay Mafe $90 million potentially to get his contract, or $80 million. So I just think taking a D end earlier, an impact edge player, makes the most sense because, again, I think they really like some of the guys we have in house on the offensive line. I think you can get some guys in the mid rounds of this draft that are going to come in and be able to actually make some impact for that Seattle O-line. I feel like I made Mitch either angry or he thinks he's got a way of trapping me in some sort of statement I made.
No, I received a DM of Boats and Hose, and it goes back to what Josh, the song that Josh was
Toes and Holes.
earlier.
See?
Toes and
I told that exactly what whoever sent you that DM is on my wavelength right there.
Oh god,
Toes and Holes.
It was so good. And you said it, and I thought best leave that there because this is going to spiral. And then that's just ended up in my DMs, and it's great. So,
one more from Tasha J. What do you think of Terrence Ferguson at tight end? He brings that nasty.
I think you already have that guy on your roster in AJ Barner. In a lot of ways, the skill sets are very similar. I like Terrence Ferguson, and if he's the guy that they decide that they want to bring in, great. I just think if you see someone like a Mason Taylor or one of these other guys, and they're even like a Harold Fanning Jr., they add a little bit of something different. And I think in a way that might add more. Again, I like his skill set. I think he's a really good tight end. I just don't know if Seattle's interested in him when they have basically a duplicate in AJ Barner already on their roster. Try and find someone that has maybe something that AJ Barner isn't as good at that's going to amplify that in the offense and bring it where like a guy like Mason Taylor is a far better receiver right now than AJ Barner. He brings something to your offense as being that third option.
I like it. Right. So shall we get to a mock? Because let's face it, it's mock draft season. We all love a mock. We are going to be using Walk the Mock, which we started using last season, and it updates regularly. If you want to use Walk the Mock, you can sign up to the full package, use code 12Talk. You'll get 20% off the sign-up fee. But before you do that, by all means, join us. Let's show you what it does. Here's Walk the Mock. So much like we did with Dan last week. Oh, the time's
Are you going to take trades away from me?
Yes, I am, because we're vanilla.
It might be 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon for you, but
yeah, exactly.
our viewers are going to bed.
So I've got a new puppy to go and see.
That's fair. That's fair.
Exactly. See, this is how much I love doing this pod. But I'm staying here with you guys as opposed to getting puppy cuddles downstairs. I'm trying to convince my wife that he needs to be renamed some Seahawks related name.
So no, keep him as a Yeti. Keep him as a Yeti.
No, chat.
That dog will be Doug Baldwin by the end of the week.
Oh my God, I'd love to call him Baldwin. If anyone else got any suggestions, please.
No, if you're going to change his name, Josh, you got to change him to the Boz.
Oh, Bosworth.
Just exactly.
Oh,
get him like a little Boz jersey.
I've got to
I
try and
feel like the
explain that to
comment
my wife.
section need to throw some suggestions in. We need to see that in the comments.
I'm hoping they do, to be honest. Right, so let's go vanilla draft. Obviously, you've got choices at different choices. Trading places, purist, the one GM to rule them all. I quite like that when I'm feeling all powerful. But vanilla draft, yes. Let's go for that. Let's pick our team, the Seahawks, and enter the draft room. So, as our guest, much like Dan last week, Bryce, this falls on you. And you can tell everyone why you're picking a certain person. And here we are.
And Tyler Warren somehow got there, and I don't understand how that.
So let's see, just for the sake of this, let's see who's been picked. So Cam Ward at 1, Shador Sanders at 2, Abdul Carter 3, Travis Hunter. So that's actually quite accurate in my opinion for what that could be. Michael Williams at 5, Ashton Genty at 6, which is something that I can really see going. Then you got Mason Graham at 7, Will Campbell at 8, Armand Membu at 9, Will Johnson at 10, Kelvin Banks at 11, going to the 49ers, McMillan at 12, Tyler Booker going at 13, Shavon Ravel Jr. at 14, which Mitch, he's one of your favorites at the moment, isn't he? And I think Bryce. Then we've got James Pierce Jr. at 15, Walter Nolan at 16, and Nick Ebenwari going at 17. Do you know what?
Be heartbreaking for me on draft night if that happens.
I might cry into my beer if that happens.
Yeah, me
I
too.
really would. But based on that, and this is what, even though last week we said with Dan, it doesn't look entirely realistic. I can see a lot of those shaking out.
A lot of this makes sense to me. It does. A lot of this makes sense. You know, you look at even the 49ers pick there of Calvin Banks. That's basically creating your next Trent Williams in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense. Tyler Booker to the Dolphins makes a lot of sense because he fits that type of run scheme. The one in here that I think is probably the least likely, I would say, if you go down a little bit there, is probably Ravel to the Colts.
Yeah.
I think they might go with a different corner potentially, or even go with a interior O-line since they lost some of their guys there. So that's the only one I would have kind of some questions about. But all right, I do not believe Tyler Warren will be there. I think he might actually even be a Colts pick. So I'm not going to take Tyler Warren, even though he's there, because I don't realistically think he'll be there. Now, Shamar Stewart's an interesting player for me. Can I take a look at what's there for O-tackle and interior O-line, please?
Yep. And if my mouse works.
Okay. So Josh Simmons, he's off my board because he's a pure tackle. He's not someone that you can move inside. Now, for me, it gets interesting because of Donovan Jackson and Gray Zabel. And at pick 18 here, I think you can still get one of these guys potentially later on in round 2. It's a bit of a jump, and this is where I usually trade back with someone, which I think could be a conversation piece for Seattle in reality. So give me edge rushers now, just because I've seen what's kind of there.
This is like countdown. Can we have a vowel?
Yeah, exactly.
Have another vowel.
So you've got Mike Green. Did I not see Shamar Stewart there? Or am I missing something?
I think he's listed under defensive line.
D-line, yeah.
Oh, he's listed as D-line. So, okay, interesting. Okay, so for me, the question now comes down to Shamar Stewart or Kenneth Grant.
Oh, interesting. I love Kenneth Grant.
So do I. And I think you pair him with Byron Murphy and you have a interior destruction force there that can stop the run and create problems now. That leads to, again, do we come back later on and hopefully the edge class hasn't completely fallen off a cliff? Where I still think you can get like a Jordan Phillips or someone else later on that could potentially help you. You know, Ezra Raku's another guy for me that I think, you know, and JT, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that last name. He's another edge that's interesting to me as well. So let's go with Kenneth Grant here. Let's give Byron Murphy a running mate and create some interior destruction.
He's locked in.
Okay, so and
Oh,
like
surely
I
that's
figured,
a pretty easy pick then.
and now I can take he is now. Do they have where Donovan Jackson? I just want to know for my own peace of mind. He's not on there.
Donovan Jackson
Could have
went.
gone straight after we picked, I'm sure.
Did he go right after we picked? I thought he might.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, Denver right there, 120.
Yeah.
That damn Broncos. Okay, so now it's Gray Zabel. I like Gray Zabel here at this pick because for me, the issue and the concern I have with Gray Zabel at 18 is you're taking a guy that does not have a lot of big time game experience. But now for a second round pick and he sits a year, I don't feel nearly as bad about that as I do if my pick 18 is on the bench because he can't beat out a Christian Haynes or a Lamea or one of these other guys. So let's take Gray Zabel here.
I love it. And we've addressed both lines. We've got the D-line help. We've got the O-line help. And for me, Gray Zabel is the sole best fit for the scheme we're going into as well in this draft. So
agreed.
Unbelievable.
So let me look at corners now.
Jackson Dart sat right there.
Yeah, no. So This is why. So those four names right there. This corner group after that goes off a cliff. Denzel Burke is like the low part for me in this. Trey Amos, I think, would be a great fit in Seattle's scheme.
And then you've got that elite athleticism from Harrison as well there, or Heston, sorry.
Yeah. So this is where, for me, this is where this conversation comes in is we are not going to pay Reek, I don't think, in Seattle, the money he's going to want, the Lenore money or the Stingley money, which is what he's going to command. This is where you take this guy that's going to be the new running mate with a Devin Witherspoon going forward. And this is where I look at a Trey Amos. Like, I believe he's 6'1", 190. But you look at the tackle numbers. That's a guy that's okay to get his nose in there and make plays and make tackles. And that's what you're going to want.
Three interceptions, 13 passes defended, 1 forced fumble.
So I think you take Trey Amos there, and this way we've addressed our both sides of the ball in the trenches, and we've also now addressed the secondary position. So we're not making a need pick next year in a draft class that may not have as many good corners potentially. So
Trey Amos.
Yeah,
locked in.
All right, this is where it's going to get interesting now. All right, so now let me see the tight ends.
Ooh.
Gunnar Helm, Terrence Ferguson, Jack Brinstall. Who else is in there by any chance? Is Harold Fanning still in there? Mitchell Evans is still there. Jackson Hawes is still there. Okay, good. So there's still some good tight ends. Okay, so we're going to go and take a receiver now. Now that I know there's still some tight ends in there, and you're going to give me Jaden Higgins.
Oof. That's a nice fit.
Easy. Right, okay. Higgins, you are a Seahawk.
Okay.
And we're back on the board again.
Now, can I take another look at the D-line and edge class?
Yes, you can.
And there's a potential fit with Jordan Phillips being there. Now, the edges are interesting. I don't like any of those two as a fit. Can you go down a little bit? Savion Jones, there. That's the guy I'm looking for right there from UCLA. But when's our next pick here?
So we have got, what's this?
We're 328. So our next
435.
So that's a bit of a drop. That's a significant drop here. So I think we might be able to get away with that. So what's on the interior O-line again? Jared Wilson, Luke Kandra. So those guys are going to be there later on. Okay. So this is where I'm going to do something a little bit different than most people are expecting. Show me off-ball linebacker.
Demetrius.
Okay, so I like Moden Jr. right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's who
he's been a big favorite. He's a big favorite of mine over the last 2 years. I thought he'd come out last year, but really, really
so it's either him or a tight end right now because I want to see if the tight ends have moved again there, Mitch. I'm sorry I'm making you go back sorry, Josh, I'm making you go back and forth.
That's fine. Mitch and I get confused all the time.
Okay. So go down a little bit. Let me just have a look here. So Ferguson's still there. Yeah, let's take our linebacker right there. So take Moden Jr. from Georgia. Okay. Now we'll see how this all plays out here. And it's falling kind of like I thought it would. Okay, Billy Bowman went off. Good. Okay. Oh, and my pick, the Dolphins took my edge that I was looking at there. Damn.
Oh, Deja.
Yeah, 2 picks before. So can we look at that edge class again?
Of
Let me
course.
just see if anything's changed in here. See, this is where that cliff hits, right? And that's where it dies right off. So let's take our tight end here. I think this is the sweet spot to take that tight end. So we're going to take, Gadsden's there. Out of Syracuse, Brinstall. Now, see, Brinstall's interesting to me out of Clemson. Yeah, there's your boy. But we can get him way later on. Like, he's going to be, because he's got the injury issues, he's going to be a guy. The thing I like about Jake Brinstall here out of Clemson is he gives you a little bit of a better receiver than AJ Barner. That's the only thing. So you could split him into the slot in some of their schemes and use him. But I also like Jackson Haas because he can just blow anybody up. Can we go back to the all part of it? Just every prospect there, Josh?
You certainly can.
All right. Now, see, Ricky White's interesting. Kobe Bryant. I know everyone's going to say take Pegasus right now.
That's
yes, because
that's the
there's
fun.
value
Because professionally, you can play O-line and D-line.
Yeah,
the same as Travis Hunter professionally in the NFL can play both sides.
When I look at this, so we've addressed. Okay. I really want to see if we can get another. What's our O-line, interior O-line? Is Luke Kandra still there?
I think he went. I saw him go. Do you want me to do a quick sort of recap of what we've got for anyone listening as well and watching? So with pick 18, we took Kenneth Grant. With second round pick 18, we took Gray Zabel, and then second round pick 21, we took Trey Amos, cornerback, and then round 3, pick 18, Jaden Higgins, and then round 3, pick 28, we took, is it Smail Moden?
Mondon.
Yeah. So right now where we're picking, I think we take Jackson Slater. Had a visit. I think he can play center or guard. So again, you're addressing that interior part because I know that there's going to be some tackles we can get later on that I think could be swing tackles that would be okay. So let's take Jackson Slater here. So we've doubled down on our O-line in a way, make everyone happy in Seahawk land. All right, so now we're up again. So go back to the all there, Mitch, and let me just have a look at the giant board. Oh, Jack Kaiser's there.
I was just putting the Discord link in the chat. It's still Josh doing the MC.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. So yes,
It's
okay.
fine.
So
Don't worry.
one of you, whoever's controlling it, that's all I'll say.
Me.
Can we scroll down a bit, Josh, just a little bit? Let me see what's in this room. So Jack Kaiser's interesting. We already got a linebacker. Jalen Reed is interesting as a safety to me out of Penn State. So again, he's a guy that could be your third safety type. I would be interested in him. What's in the receiver room by chance? Nick Nash, Theo Wise. Keep going down. Jimmy Horn Jr. See, the receivers have really been picked over right now. Nick Nash is the only one that I'm actually really interested in. Okay, let's go back to tight end.
Oh, wait, I'm gone there. I've just seen Mitch's boy. Where is he? Deontay Thornton's down there.
Yeah, Thornton out of Tennessee. Yeah, he's interesting. Let's look at tight end. Let's take tight end because we didn't take one last time. So let's take Jackson Haas here. He's just a mean SOB.
I loved him at the combine as well. I thought he was excellent.
And I think he can develop his pass catching skill set. So, all right. So
we're back on the clock again.
Geez, we're back on the clock again. Okay. So we can go back to the all and look over the all point. Okay. So Kaiser's still there. Now, Joyner's in. What's the edge class look like again? Show me the edge class again there, Josh. Go down a little bit. RJ Oben is an interesting one to me. Who are you saying? Baron Sorrell?
Yeah.
From Texas,
fell
yeah,
off a
he's
little
in
bit.
exchange.
He was really highly thought of last year and stayed in college an extra year, and his stock's fallen a bit, but there's a lot of talent there.
Again, this is what we're looking for here. We're looking for talent. So let's look at the receivers again and see if Nick Nash is still hanging out there. He is. Now, see, Nick Nash is an interesting guy to me. He fits a lot of the kind of skill. I know we took Jaden Higgins already, but if you can double down in that receiver room, I think there's some theory to doing that. I'm just looking at
It's a decent return as well. 104 receptions. So 1,382 yards, 16 TDs, and 13.3 yards per catch.
And we're getting him at around what, 5 value?
Yeah.
I think that makes some sense. So let's take Nick Nash here. See, this is the one thing I don't like about Seattle's draft and why I think I could see them trading back is the amount of gaps they have where they're large gaps.
Yeah.
All
Also,
right.
you need to start whispering down the mic because I have some really weird people commenting again, talking about toes and holes and right. Where else are we? Right.
Okay, so I like Marks here as a running back. I think we need to take one. I think he adds some skill set. He catches out of the backfield really well out of USC. So let's take him here.
Jaquavius Marks, you are a Seahawk.
All right, so this is our last pick now. Okay, so we've got D. So let's go back to O tackle and let's see if one of my swing guys is there. Cooper Mays out of Tennessee. No one I like. So let's go back to, let's look at the quarterbacks. Let's just see who's at pick 7 round, who's there. Okay. Nobody I want to even talk about. I'm like not even in a realm of conversation. Maybe Brady Cook's about the only one I'd take a swing at here, but
DJ Ugalele?
No. No, Josh. No. Let's look at safety.
Freehan Strong.
Yeah, let's have a look there. Oh, Woodson's there. Oh, that's interesting to me. Let's take Craig Woodson.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Bosh.
And then I'll let Mitch critique my draft.
Great mock.
They got to get a new GIF. That's the same one from last year. They got to have
it is. I still love
one.
it.
There's got to be a bad mock thing.
As a millennial, I absolutely love that.
Oh, I know.
So, shall we do a recap? So, round 1, pick 18, we took Kenneth Grant, D-line from Michigan. Round 2, pick 18, we took Gray Zabel, offensive tackle from North Dakota State. Round 2, pick 21, Trey Amos, the cornerback from Ole Miss. Round 3, pick 18, we took Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, Iowa State. Round 3, pick 28, we took Shmael Mondon, junior, linebacker from Georgia. Round 4, pick 35, Jackson Slater, interior O-line from Sacramento State. And round 5, pick 34, Jackson Hawes, tight end, Georgia Tech. Round 5, pick 37, Nick Nash, wide receiver, San Jose State. I'm really sounding like one of those really old school people on the BBC who's announcing football scores. Round 7, pick 7, Jaquavius Marks, running back from USC. And round 7, pick 18 is Craig Woodson, strong safety from California. Ladies and gents,
I really like that.
I that has filled some perfect holes there, Bryce. You've done really well. Yeah. I don't know why I was about to praise you, like you're not in this game or anything. That's brilliant. I'm going to save that because we still need to put Dan Vienzi's mock up as well. So we're going to put them up together and let people see let's see what people say.
The board fell funny after the Jaden Higgins pick. It broke differently than what I expected it to, which led to the Mondon pick there in the 3rd round because there just wasn't value at other spots. So that's where I take what I figure is a good pick to bring in a linebacker I think can immediately contribute on special teams and then also push Tyrese Knight for playing time.
Yeah. I think we've had some, regardless of what draft engine you use, you always get thrown up some really weird picks. And for me, I think that first 18 or first 17 before us fell. People say it's not realistic, but I think when you look at every team's needs and what was there, Tyler Warren would be the outlier, but the rest of them I could really see. I could really see if Tyler Warren's there for the Bengals, I think they're just going to they'll sprint to the podium. There's not not a way they're not going to do that. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, Bryce. Thank you so much. We will put that up on our social medias. Obviously, we'll be tagging the HawksZone rundown. For anyone who's watching that don't know where to find you, everything is down in the comments for us. But by all means, shout it out, sir.
So you can find us over at the HawksZone Rundown on YouTube. We also have our stuff up on fieldgoals.com. So if you guys are in that area and you like reading the articles, go over there. There's tons of great content there. Our podcast is up there all the time. And yeah, I also have Pulse of the Draft with Dan Viens, which is our all NFL draft show. And we will be recording a new episode this weekend where we're going to be focusing on the AFC East. So Dan's been given the Dolphins and the Jets to review, and I have been given the Bills and the Patriots to kind of dive into their draft needs and what they're going to look like. So we got that coming out this week, as well as me and Ryan will be doing a mock draft on the HawksZone Rundown, our first one together this year. So We'll see how that one kind of shapes up on Monday.
I like it. And for anyone that's joined, if you're joining through the HawksZone Rundown stream and you want to help support us, by all means, you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those good things. Follow us on social medias. Just search at 12 Talk Pod. X is where we're most lively. But if you want to talk to us and also our special guest, Bryce, you can join our Discord. It's completely free. Mitch has popped up the link in there already, but we have got Bryce in there. We've got some fantastic Seahawks content creators, 12s from all over the world as well, not just the UK. We reach to Germany, obviously Canada, the US. We've got Gibraltar. Can't forget Gibraltar. We're basically just trying to like collect every country. That's what we want. Like,
so if you're from Zimbabwe and you've got an internet connection, get in.
Come and join us. But we're talking Seahawks all the time. We've got multiple channels, whether it comes to mock drafts, free agency, just memes. They're my favorite ones at the moment, because when I'm clicking through from work and I see one of them, I'm like, I'll save that. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, and we just enjoy having everyone on. Bryce, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it, and we really enjoy having you as well. This is about, I think it's your third or fourth time on with us now.
I think so, yeah. So we're getting up there. I'm starting to become more of a regular.
Yeah, there you go. We'll put you in the little black book for when me or Mitch can't come in and be like, Bryce can co-host. Fantastic.
There you go.
But yeah, but for me, Josh, from Mitch, from Bryce, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining, for putting your comments in there. It's been a fantastic evening for us, daytime for you guys. Shall we finish with a quick Go Hawks?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.